Hey everybody, this is Perch. All right. I'll try and make my case. I read a bunch of comics this week, and one of the comics I read was Savage Wolverine, #1. Brand new comic. It's fine. It's drawn fine. It's written fine. It's not the Jungle Adventure. Was that the Mike Mignola one? Anyway, it's not a tale that will live on forever. I think even though there's more issues coming in this series, I don't know that it will. I don't think there's a world where the future chapters in this comic are going to dramatically make it better. I think it is what it is, and it's fine. The challenge with it is it doesn't matter. There's a difference between saying something is bad and saying something doesn't matter. Things can be good and then still not matter. That comic book that I said I liked, the Mike Mignola, the Jungle Adventure comic, it's a one shot of Wolverine. He's in the Savage Land. This comic is drawn beautifully, in my opinion. The story is fun. It involves Wolverine kind of going to Savage Land, having a crazy, wacky adventure, fighting Apocalypse and knocking up some native woman there and having a little baby with her. And then he takes off in a plane, presumably never see any of these people again. I may be mistaken. I don't think they've ever come back and, revisited the fact that Wolverine's got a child. The battle with Apocalypse didn't really matter. It was an Apocalypse robot somehow. It didn't lead to anything. It didn't reveal some magical part of Wolverine's past. It was a good story. It didn't matter. It mattered, I guess, from the sense of it was a quality story, but beyond that, it didn't matter to comics. And this is the same feeling I had reading Savage Wolverine. It's the same feeling I had reading The Sinister 16, I think. This is another comic that came out this week. It involved Peter Parker and Mary Jane having dinner. They are dating or married. It just so happens that at the dinner, there are a bunch of villains and some heroes. And the restaurant owner is in debt and is basically trying to get everybody to fight so that the restaurant will be destroyed and he can collect the insurance money, which is what happens. The comic was fun. It was drawn by Phil Noto, I believe. I think Mark Guggenheim wrote it. I may be wildly wrong about that. I'm going off memory. It's been a long day. It was a perfectly, decently drawn story. I did enjoy that, 60% of the story was heroes having awkward conversations and eating. Actually, I'm being generous. It's probably 75% of the story was that. It's kind of nice seeing Peter dating Mary Jane. It was, from an art perspective, inoffensive. From a story perspective, it was humorous. It was designed to be kind of comedic. It was fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I think this is a problem that a lot of comics have that are being produced right now, is because I read through a number of the comics that Marvel put out this week. Almost all of them fit into that category. Very few of them felt like anything I needed to read because it was going to matter later. That it was going to build to something else, that it was going to be relevant. It felt a little bit, frankly, like doom-scrolling Twitter at 3 a.m. That's what it felt like reading these Marvel comics. It felt like I was just kind of reading it, and there's some kind of part in my brain that's like, I paid money for this, so I've spent money. I've assigned, financial value to these comics, but I none of them really matter to me. So I'm just kind of reading them. And it felt like, staring at Twitter at 2 a.m. and kind of mindlessly scrolling through things, hoping you come across a meme or some, nudie picture that is actually, interesting and not somebody saying, you won't last 2 minutes in this thread. Yeah, spoiler. You're going to last, you're going to last just fine. Anyway, the challenge I have is that I think there are a number of people, and we encounter them all the time. Some of them post to this channel every now and then, who will say, I like that comic. I liked it. I'm over here going, this comic is pointless. And they're like, but this comic was great. I enjoyed it. And I think both things can be true. The comic can be great and you enjoy it. And also the comic can be pointless, not matter. But in order for the comic business to sustain, the comic actually has to matter. I mean, ideally all of them, but certainly a majority of them need to matter, because if it doesn't matter, you're less likely to come back next month and buy it again. I think it's not enough to just be enjoyable. It's not enough for comic books to be junk food. It's not enough for comics to be, the equivalent of scrolling on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, whatever you're on, Facebook. Ooh, nobody's on Facebook. Anyway, it's not enough to be that. You actually need to be more. You actually need to be able to, feel like you got some experience that both validates the money you spent on it and also your time. The thing about it is I don't pay for Twitter. I can scroll around on Twitter for 10 minutes. And if I don't see anything that I like or that, resonates with me, I don't really feel like I wasted my time or money. I definitely didn't waste money, but I did waste time. But still, it feels like, easy come, easy go. But I don't assign value to it either. Twitter is a mindless distraction where I don't really care what I'm going to see when I scroll around on there. I stopped posting a long time ago. So to me, Twitter is only output. It's only memes. That's all it is. I don't need for it to be anything more, and it's not. I think comics being an equivalent of Twitter is very dangerous, because the other thing is I get busy sometimes and I work or I'm drawing or I'm consulting or I'm flying around or I'm doing something, and I will go, 2 months without checking Twitter. And then I'm bored and I'm like, I think I'll just scroll through this for 10 minutes. I can't sleep. I'll just, sit here and see what people are bitching about. And I think if comics becomes that, so first of all, if you're addicted or high up on Twitter or YouTube or any of these kinds of things, then, this is the way you're used to consuming entertainment. You're used to it being kind of temporary. You're used to it not really mattering because it doesn't need to, especially if you're pirating it. You're not putting any money toward it. You're just reading online. A lot of the people who come and argue about me, like, I don't know why you're bitching about that book. I loved it. You dig in a little deeper. It's like, oh, you stole it. Okay, cool. Well, you didn't pay for it. So yeah, I guess you can look forward to anything. But I think that if comic books are going to become the equivalent of Twitter, then the comic publishers are going to have to radically change their business model and how they make money. Because the reality is, the reason why Twitter works is that, Elon Musk or, the people in charge of Twitter they're not paying anybody for that content. You're supplying it to it for free. You're basically taking it upon yourself to go and, post stuff and make memes. They're not paying you for any of that. And then you get engagement, and that's the return you get. With comic books, though, the publisher has to pay people. They have to pay the artist. They have to pay the printing. They have to pay the writer. They have to pay the marketing. They have to pay all kinds of stuff. And so it doesn't work if you're treating this like Twitter disposable entertainment. It blows up at that point. Now, if everybody was donating comics for free, if the writers were just crowdsourced, if basically Marvel's like, hey, you, I don't care who you are, you draw a story with our characters, we'll put it out, we'll help distribute it. Okay. Slap an ad model on that. Suddenly it all works. They don't need you to care. The comics don't need to matter either. They're just looking for a quick quick attention. But my observation is that in reading a lot of these comics, I was very shocked to find out that there were a lot of comics that weren't necessarily bad. They just don't matter. It was a perfectly enjoyable read. I don't really care if I read issue 2. Savage Wolverine was that way. It was fine. I read the comics like, nah, this is fine. I don't care about I don't need to read issue 2. I may. I may, as I'm downloading comics, and by the way, when I say downloading, I mean paying for and then having access to. That is how I do it. But if I'm paying for comics, I may, buy Savage Wolverine #2. I may not. I don't know. Nothing is compelling me to make sure I buy it. I will buy it when the time comes, maybe. I also, by the way, get a lot of the printed comics, and unfortunately, since I am in the completist era of the X-Men, I'm still getting these things in print as well. But I typically don't read those. I put them in bags into the box they go. I am part of the problem. You can't. People sometimes try and punk me on that. Like I self-admit it. But this is the challenge we have with comics. And that's why I go back to comics have to matter. It's not enough for them to be junk food. It's not enough for them to be short-sighted entertainment. It's not enough to have kind of a fun, happy story. The nature of comics is that story needs to be relevant years from now. If you're creating something that is just meant to be read and then instantly forgotten, you are not in the comic industry. You're in the Twitter industry. So, yeah, I've said before on this channel, I think comics have gotten better. Some comics have gotten good. Very few comics matter. In order to have a truly healthy industry, we've got to have good and matter. Both. Thanks for listening.